In this video, I'm talking about my row and column stencil. This is a handy tool that acts as a ruler and an easy guide for making spreads. Its unit of measure is a 1x1 box. It lines up perfectly against a 5mm grid, which is found in popular bullet journals. And don't worry if it looks intimidating. I will walk through how to use the stencil to make a few mock spreads and share some tips and tricks to help you along. Here, I'm using my A5 dot grid INKBYJENG journal. Most A5 journals feature a grid that is 38 boxes from the top to the bottom and 26 boxes left to right. This is printed on the edge of the stencil. That means no more counting. The numbers are prefixed with an X, represent how many boxes are in each section. For example, the column marked with X3 or times 3 means that number 1 will span 3 boxes, so will number 2 and number 3 in the same column. The column marked times 4 will have 4 boxes in number 1, 2, and 3, etc. And this keeps going all the way to column times 12. Here's the current spread in my journal. This is a pretty common 2-page weekly spread that I use. Each page is divided into 4 equal sections. This allows us to have one section per day and one extra section that can be used for trackers, goals, notes, or even a weekly review. For this particular spread, I decided to use the last section as a notes area. For the spread, I wanted to maximize the vertical space in my journal, and I wanted each section to be equal. This turns out to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes high for each section. This is how I would have recreated the spread by counting and using my ruler. And even though I've sped up the video, you can see this is pretty time consuming and can be error prone. I've had to use a lot of correction tape due to miscounting in the past. Not only does the stencil save you from counting boxes, it also helps determine what size to make your boxes for evenly spaced spreads. I used to refer back to old spreads to determine what heights these boxes should be. Now I can use the stencil. Simply line up the stencil to the page grid, and this is where the magic happens. I line up the stencil's top grid line to this top grid line of the page. For this spread, we know that we want 4 evenly spaced sections. We look for the number 4 in each column. Times 3 to times 8 columns would make our sections too small, and having 4 sections all 10 boxes high wouldn't fit on the page. That leaves us with sections 9 boxes high. We know that the page height is 38 boxes. 4 times 9 is only 36 boxes. That means we're left with 2 extra. Depending on your spread, you can choose to start the boxes at the top, bottom, or have them centered. I chose to have the 4 sections centered, so I moved the stencil down by 1 box. In addition to the stencil being slightly transparent, each column features hole punches to make guide marks. There's no need to lift the stencil off the page. Just continue down the column, making marks as needed. After removing the stencil, you'll have convenient guide marks to continue with your spread. Let's say next week you wanted shorter sections in order to fit some decorations or a habit tracker at the top. We could use the times 8 column the same way. This time, we will start at the bottom of the page. Again, we use the hole punches in the stencil to make the guide marks. After revealing the guide marks, we can see that there's plenty of room at the top to use. In the previous example, we used the stencil to make evenly spaced rows. In this next example, I'll show how to use the stencil to make evenly spaced columns, as shown in this spread. It's as simple as turning the stencil on its side. To fit Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we'll need to make 4 evenly spaced horizontal sections that go from left to right. Rotate the stencil and align it to the left edge of the page. Now, look for the number 4 again. This time, we use the times 6 column punches to draw in the guide marks. With the guide marks in place, I'm able to draw in the column lines to mimic the spread. Notice that the stencil can also be used as a straight edge. Now we move on to the left side. Again, using the times 6 column, we make the guide marks, but this time we're only making 3 sections for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The process is repeated, and we're left with 7 boxes spread across a 2-page spread. The next example features one of my favorite weekly spreads. It includes a sidebar for the overview calendar, a section for day-specific tasks, and a full page for other tasks. You can use the row and column stencil to easily create the 7-day grid. Again, line up your stencil to the top of the grid and look for the number 7. Only 3 columns can accommodate 7 sections, times 3, times 4, and times 5. We want to use the max number, number 5. I moved the stencil down so that we could start the grid at the bottom of the page, and again, I used the hole punches to make the guidelines. Using the stencil as a straight edge, I draw out the grid to mimic the spread. The edge of the stencil includes half-page guides. The guides are denoted by a thick line. Vertically, the guide mark is found between 19 and 20. This can be used to divide the page in half. If you rotate the stencil, you can use the horizontal half-page guide mark. It's found between 13 and 14, also denoted by a thick line. Use it to divide the page in half. One of my favorite uses of the stencil is the numbering system on the edge. Regardless if you're copying one of your old spreads or using a template found or purchased online, the numbers make duplicating a spread so easy. Here, I'm using the edge of the spread to make note of line lengths and copying them over to my practice page. If you found this video useful, hit that like button, and if you use this spread in your journal, I'd love to see them. Go ahead and share them on Instagram, tag me, and follow me while you're there. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Ink by Jing, for more videos. Thanks!